Welcome one, welcome all. It's your boy JMic. That is Zac Reed.
It is.
And
I dropped the
this-
ball.
I did a terrible job.
I didn't know if I was supposed to. Like,
I don't
this
know.
is,
I don't
no, this
know.
is great. This is fantastic. It is. I mean, if you're going to be called the dummies, you got to come in like with a little bit of flourish and a little bit of fumble. It's fantastic.
Do you want me to run it back?
I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, whatever. We can. I'll be quiet again when we can do that.
Okay. Welcome one, welcome all. It's your boy JMic.
And Zac. I don't know if we can do this. Can we do this? Oh, that is funny.
Oh man, that's funny.
I'll just roll.
I just feel so.
I'll just roll.
Yeah, that's
all good.
Better. I feel so awkward. I don't even know. It's like Ricky Bobby. I don't know what to do with my hands. I don't know what to do with my hands. Fumble the bag.
It's all. It's that. I'm actually. This was fantastic. This is the most I have smiled in a bit since the open bar on Tuesday. So, welcome to the Dynasty Dummies podcast. I am here with JMic. I am Zac, and we are the Dynasty Dummies headed into post-rookie season, rookie draft season. It's here. We've had the NFL draft. I listened to the Dynasty Trade Addict, so I can confirm. Russ Fisher told me at least 6 times that the draft has happened, and I'm excited to be into it.
Listen, we are finally to the point where drafts have begun, auctions have started. The stress-induced sweats of milking the clock are here, and I'm excited to be able to talk through all these things with you, Zac. For anyone that may be new here, welcome in. We're the Dynasty Dummies. We're excited to be able to kick it with you. We're excited to be able to talk draft, talk shop with you. And tonight, what we want to do, what we hope to do, is just engage in discussion in reference to where we are right now as we head into these rookie drafts, what our mindsets are, what took place in these drafts to really drive our processes forward. What are some things that we're leaning into? What are some things that we're maybe running away from that the crowds may be running toward? That looks like impending doom. No, that's Mount Vesuvius, run. So I'm excited to be able to get into all those things, Zac. But as always, when we get together, there's nothing quite like a Zac Reed musing. So please give me, what is the meaty morsel that you have been chewing on for so long now?
Well, I've been reading a lot lately, and one of my favorite authors is Ray Bradbury, and you probably slogged through Fahrenheit 451 in high school, or maybe you read Dandelion Wine. My personal favorite is The Halloween Tree. If Charles Dickens was Christmas, Ray Bradbury's Halloween Tree is the Halloween season. But this particular quote from Bradbury struck me with regards to the NFL draft, with regards to the entirety of rookie season, and also perhaps on into my own life. When it goes, we are all fools all the time. It's just we're a different kind each day. We think, nah, I'm not a fool today. I've just learned my lesson. I was a fool yesterday, but not this morning. Then tomorrow we find out that, yeah, we were a fool today too. And I think that the only way we can grow and get on in the world is to accept the fact that we're not perfect and live accordingly. And that really kind of encapsulated to me this entire draft process, and everybody, crying out, the sky is falling once you had landing spots and all of a sudden players that you thought were going to go in the top 2 or 3 rounds like Tylan Wallace or Kenny Gainwell, or the backfield mate of Aaron Jones now, Kylan Hill, who went second to last, who as a player that I was touting as potential value in this class, all of a sudden things didn't go quite the way we anticipated. And in some cases, they didn't go anywhere near how we anticipated. And you've got to stop. You've got to reframe. You've got to realize that now we have new information. We are less fools than we were yesterday, but we'll be a different type of fool tomorrow when we head into our rookie drafts. And so that, I think, is something big to keep in mind. And again, Bradbury just hit the nail on the head. It's kind of the dummies moniker. I mean, that's kind of how we've always played it, where we don't know everything. If we did, we wouldn't be here. We'd be on our private island in the Caribbean after we made a whole bunch of money telling everybody, how to play this game. So we just do the best we can. We change with new information, which is what this show will be about, because we've got some new information to go forward and make do with what we've got and hope for the best.
That is so incredibly well said. And the beauty of tonight, and as we just kind of lean into this discussion, we're not necessarily going to go by positions. We're not necessarily going to go by rounds. I think more along the lines of what we want to do is just talk through some themes that we're seeing, that are developing, and hopefully challenge you all, the listener, to be able to think for yourself, to be able to think through these various things, that you're not the same fool tomorrow that you are today. So that'll be the encouragement. So one of the places, Zach, we definitely need to discuss this evening is San Francisco. San Francisco.
Yeah.
They were a major flashpoint in the draft, and a couple of really unique things happened in San Francisco. We got Trey Lance. Everyone was talking, prognosticating, guessing, wishing, hoping that it was going to be Mac Jones. And lo and behold, Trey Lance is the pick there at 3rd overall to the Niners. And then they follow it up a couple of rounds later in the 3rd round by trading up to take one Trey Sermon, running back out of Ohio State. I know we both really liked Trey Lance. We like his ceiling. We like his prospects. We like the fact that maybe it'll take some seasoning and some developing, but we've got the makings of something really nice with him. And now with Trey Sermon, a guy that neither of us were particularly high on, who showed some nice highs in college in moments and spurts, teaming up together in the backfield. How do we look at San Francisco at this point, Zach?
Man, this was a gold mine, and it was really interesting to me because you don't often see a coaching staff or a front office make these swings for the fences, where like Shanahan and Jed York really rolled the dice at 3. Because I don't think that Trey Lance is necessarily the safest pick. I think Mac Jones was probably safer, would probably get you to the playoffs, but I don't know that he necessarily has that extra oomph that Trey Lance has to get you over that hump. And Lance, yeah, he's raw, but he does a great job of moving the pocket. He's got arm strength all over the field, accuracy all over the field. He's the best runner in this class. So right there, from a fantasy standpoint, he's definitely at the top of my draft board, where I've got Lawrence Fields, Lance, and I think that just the ability to run the ball, we've seen that be so important in fantasy, that I'm finally with you. It took me a little while to warm up to Trey Lance and get him up to the upper echelons of this quarterback class, but I'm there, and that gets me to Trey Sermon, because I've heard a lot of people be really excited about Trey Sermon, and I agree that the landing spot with that blocking scheme with Sermon's ability to get north and south and run the ball hard, it is a good fit on the surface. But I'm working on this hypothesis, and right now it is just that. It is purely a hypothesis, but I'm watching running quarterbacks, like pure running quarterbacks. So Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, and I think Trey Lance is closer to a running as a weapon than he is running as a secondary way to escape. And they use their mobility instead of checkdowns. So where you would get a ball to a running back with a traditional quarterback or even a Mahomes who, moves the pocket but doesn't necessarily use his rushing as a primary weapon, you're getting checkdowns to running backs and you're getting checkdowns to slot receivers. I think that mobile quarterbacks or really mobile quarterbacks are using their athleticism, using their rushing ability to gain that yardage instead of checking down. And so Sermon already was not a great pass catcher. And then you put him in a place with Trey Lance, who, I don't know if you know this, but Trey Lance completed 192 passes in his full season in 2019. 25 of them went to running backs. That's it. 16 to his first running back, 7 to his second string back, and 2 to the third string back. So, less than 5%. No, that's not right. Less than 15%. Peter Howard, check my math on that. Of his passes went to running backs. Like it's just really not something that he does because he's got that ability with his legs.
And the natural question becomes, if we really like Trey Lance, or if we really believe that Trey Lance is going to get to the place that we all hope that San Francisco can help him get to, then that means that everyone in the offense, while they may maintain some sort of value within the offense, productive, doesn't mean everyone's a high profile fantasy asset, right? So we're still looking at an offense that is looking to run the ball consistently, whether it be with a committee approach, whether it be with even if they want to lean on a certain guy for a certain game. We've seen seasons where 4 different running backs will be the rushing leaders for the 49ers, whether it's your Raheem Mosterts, your JMic McKinnons, your Tevin Coleman's, and Jeff Wilson I'm leaving out, and I'm sure that there's someone else. I think we probably even had like an Alfred Morris sighting or some other obscure name in San Francisco that we've seen over the last few years. This continues to be the case. Oh, and by the way, they also went and fooled around and drafted another one of the sleepers that people loved in the 6th round, Elijah Mitchell, Raging Cajun, right? So they continue to stock the cupboard, even though Tevin Coleman's gone and now JMic McKinnon's gone. I think that the idea that Trey Sermon can be a positive fantasy asset for you, like obviously the path is there. The question becomes, at what point in your rookie drafts are you willing to lean into a lot of things that may be pointing to the fact that Trey Sermon isn't, Trey Sermon may not be the king of the throne in that backfield. I think people may want him to be, but it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be.
Well, and I think that's the thing that you need to look at, and it's not a knock at Trey Sermon as a talent, because I think he's a good runner, but looking at, I just kind of roughed out a ranking because I still haven't wrapped my head around this entire thing yet, but I'm looking at it, and I probably will end up with Trey Sermon as my running back 4. But my running back 4 is going to fall somewhere in close to 20 in Superflex, because I don't think that this class as a whole, especially the running backs, is a bumper crop of players, and I don't see the overall upside, the overall like go get Trey Sermon and either have him produce enough that you can trade him or produce enough that he's going to be an exceptional part of your roster. It's really difficult for me to see a path without multiple injuries and them sitting Lance and running with Garoppolo for multiple years. And maybe they do, but I really struggle to see this coaching staff with Kyle Shanahan go out and draft a player like Lance who has all of these facets to his game that unlock so much more that you can do with that playbook outside of what Garoppolo can do. And it doesn't bode well for a back in that backfield being, we talked about this a little bit before the show, but it to me is a lot like Buffalo, where you've got those running backs that you had Zach Moss and you had Devin Singletary that people liked coming out, thought, oh, well, they're going to get touches out of the backfield. They're going to get passing work. They haven't, because Josh Allen runs when he is in trouble. He doesn't check the ball down. The same thing, and I know I'm going to take a lot of flack for this because everybody loves J.K. Dobbins, but it's the same thing in Baltimore where J.K. Dobbins is not going to be everything that people want him to be just because, A, Lamar Jackson is taking a big chunk of the rushing in Baltimore, and B, he's not checking down to backs. And so everything Dobbins is getting, everything that Zach Moss and Devin Singletary are getting, and I think most of what Trey Sermon and whoever else is in that amalgamation of a backfield in San Francisco are getting, are going to be on the ground, kind of their own creation. So it's hard for me to see him be a huge return on investment. So I'm going to take him, but I'm going to take him much later, back toward the end of the second round.
You're not going to like me very much for asking you this, but I'm going to ask anyway, Zach. You're in your rookie drafts. Who's coming off the board first for you? Trey Sermon or Kadarius Toney?
And what's really funny is because they're right there, and Toney comes off a couple spots ahead of him, just based on draft capital, based on the fact that maybe something happens where the Giants fall into another offensive coordinator. We can clap on, clap off, and get Toney some touches, because I think that his dynamism gives me a lot bigger swing for the fence than Trey Sermon in an offense where I don't think he's going to get receiving work. Now, if Sermon was in an offense and was a pass catcher to begin with and was in an offense where I thought that he could see a path to touches through the air and then gain some more on the ground, it would be Trey Sermon. But that's not the type of player he is.
That's going to be interesting when a track already in a couple different rookie drafts. I'm seeing Trey Sermon go late 1, early 2.
Yeah,
that'll be a really interesting thing to track as we move forward.
See, and I want No, I was just saying I want all of those receivers in that like early first or early second, late first. Give me Rondell Moore, give me Jalen Waddle, give me Bateman. All of those guys. I think probably that second run of quarterbacks where you're taking Mac Jones, and even Elijah Moore and De'Ami Brown. Like I want all of those guys before I am looking at Sermon.
I think that's another interesting place to go that you bring up that group of receivers. So let's go there for a moment. So we saw, and we've already touched on Kadarius Toney, but I want to take a look at Rashad Bateman, who goes 27 overall to Baltimore. Elijah Moore, 34 overall to the Jets in the second round. Rondell Moore, 49 overall, going to the Arizona Cardinals. And then let's just talk Terrace Marshall as well. Again, round 2, 59 overall. If you want to include Tutu, went to the Rams at 57, and Eskridge to the Seahawks at 56, we can. But those 4 specifically, Bateman, Moore, and Marshall. So as we had talked before and we've brought up previously, Kadarius Toney gets that first round capital that we thought he and or Marshall would. Marshall falls to the back of the second, but lands with Joe Brady in a really interesting role, possibly that could come about for him. Obviously, Rondale Moore, who we're super excited about in general, and Elijah Moore, essentially being a de facto first round pick there, right at the top of the second round. Just take me through, how are you handling and navigating that area, because I think that's a really prime spot where people are going to be faced with, do I trade out of this pick and possibly look for firsts in 2022 or beyond? And if I do try to stick and pick, how do I navigate these group of receivers when people really loved Bateman, but he lands with Lamar, so that scares people off. Elijah Moore is going to the Jets, which is nice, but there's 15 million pass catchers currently in New York. Rondale Moore now lands with Kyler, which is fun in the desert, but we do know that DeAndre Hopkins is the Bermuda Triangle of targets, and they all go through him. And of course, Marshall at the end, again, folks who were prognosticating him going in the first, now being paired with the newly extended DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson paired with Joe Brady. Take me through your thought process with that group of receivers there in that second day of the NFL draft, but looking at late 1s, early 2s of our rookie drafts.
So when I start evaluating this area, I go with, how did I like the player before the NFL draft? And did they get first 2-round capital as my first 2 kind of big check marks? And there are several of these players that fall in. In fact, all of these players fall into it. If we got Marshall and Moore and Bateman, and so now I start to look at, okay, where did I have them ranked? And in the case of Rondale Moore and Bateman, it's going to be interesting. I've got them back to back. I've got Rondale Moore ahead. I've got Bateman just behind, right in that 11-12 range, right at the turn. And the reason why I still have Rondale Moore ahead of Bateman is a couple. It's twofold, where, again, I loved Rondale Moore on film. I think he is a top tier receiver in this draft. I had a top tier of 3 with Moore, Devontae Smith, and Jamar Chase, and landing in the second round, landing in Arizona with an offense that wants to throw the ball, wants to spread it out 4 wide. Yes, you've got DeAndre Hopkins. Yes, now you've got AJ Green. So you've got those 2 guys on the outside. But I see Rondale Moore having the ability to carve out a role on the inside with what's there with Christian Kirk and Andy Isabella, especially over Andy Isabella, because I think they're 2 entirely different things. People look at Andy Isabella and they say, oh, well, he's a little white guy. He must be Wes Welker and Julian Edelman. And he's not. He's a downfield threat. He's not really an over the middle and yards after catch type player. He was more of a beat corners off the line and get downfield and make plays that way. And I think Rondale Moore really gives Arizona a facet that they haven't had, because you've seen them get the ball to the sideline with Hopkins. You've seen them try to run kind of, deeper routes and those slants with Christian Kirk, but he's still not that quick over the middle type player. He's good, but that's not what he does. You saw them try to do that with Larry Fitzgerald, but Larry Fitzgerald's not getting away from anybody in a phone booth. And I think the dynamism of Rondale Moore, you're going to have to wait a little bit for the volume I believe that. I don't think he's going to come in. I don't think you're going to see a Justin Jefferson or an AJ Brown type. I get them, AJ Brown, AJ Green. I get them confused, but I don't think you're going to see that AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson explosion of targets for Moore. But I think you're going to see him be really dynamic and eventually continue to drive those targets. And look, Kyler Murray is mobile, is able to move the pocket, which also does some really nice things for Moore. Bateman, I think, is great. I think Bateman will be the one in Baltimore without very much time goes by. I don't think Baltimore's receivers have been very good. I've not ever been a Hollywood Brown guy. And I think that they have needed to put somebody with Lamar Jackson. Now the question becomes, and this is the question that everybody asks is, can Lamar Jackson throw? That's not the question I'm asking. I know Lamar Jackson can throw. The question I'm asking is, will the coaching staff let Lamar Jackson throw? And so far they have not. So far, if you're looking, I had the debate with somebody the other day about Devontae Smith and Rashad Bateman. And I said, look, to me, it's Devontae Smith. And they're like, well, how can you say that? Because Jalen Hurts, isn't going to throw any more than Lamar Jackson. I said, Jalen Hurts has had 4 games out of the 5 that he started that he threw through more than 30 times. Lamar Jackson has had 37 starts, and he's had 5 games where he's thrown more than 30 times. Like, it's not even close in terms of the coaching staff allowing the quarterback to throw. And also the secondary in Philadelphia is fantastic if you're a quarterback, because they are Swiss cheese. And so you're getting scored on and getting the ball back where you're behind. And so I think that's a really nice thing. So you don't have that with Bateman. And so I'm a little concerned about volume.
So it sounds to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you're very in on this area of the draft.
Yeah.
And you're gonna try to get in where you can versus getting out. So that's a win there, I think.
So I think that the really interesting thing about this class is, so about 4 months ago, you and I had the conversation where we didn't think this class was quite as good as everyone thought. Right. We had that, and it was this wave, and it was the sadness, and we commiserated about, okay, well, we may not have a 2014 or a 2020 with this class. And we got over it, and we evaluated the class, and we figured out what we liked. Now everybody else is coming to that conclusion that this class is not what they thought. And I think you're actually going to get a value trading back into this range where people are going, no, this sucks. I don't want Bateman, and I don't want Rondale Moore, and I don't want Elijah Moore, and I don't want even Terrace Marshall, who, like, I'm not the biggest Terrace Marshall fan, but if you're getting him in the mid-second as a second-round pick, where you've got Joe Brady running that offense, you've got the second chance kid in Sam Darnold, and they've already got rid of Curtis Samuel, so that the way that offense functions is going to change. By the way, I really love DJ Moore this year. I hope nobody – I'm doing a startup right now, and I'm hoping that he falls to the 5th to me. Like, I'm just got my fingers crossed, because I think Sam Darnold is a check down monster. And if DJ Moore is running out of the slot, he is just going to absolutely eat. But, I really do. I think that there are some shots to be taken in this area. Even Elijah Moore, if the Jets decide to part ways with Jamison Crowder, which could happen, he's on the last year of his contract, and he's got a pretty big salary hit. And if all of a sudden Elijah Moore finds himself getting slot reps with a rookie quarterback, with a Jets team that looks, I don't want to go too far down this road, but looks like they might actually be turning a corner. They may have smartened up. That could be an interesting play too, because I think Elijah Moore is kind of that. I mean, he's in that AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson light, that play style where like he's not quite those two guys, but he can go over the middle. He can beat zone. He can go over the top, and he does a great job figuring out where the safety is playing when teams play a zone. And if the safety gets sucked up, he goes over the top, and that's where he's dangerous. And so like there are some players here that I like, that I think you're going to end up getting back into this range at a value, because you're going to hear this next week and the week after, people are going to start to evaluate the draft. People are they're going to realize that the players that we thought were good, or they thought were good, are not good, that some of the landing spots were not great, that a lot of the draft capital was not great. And so you're going to hear this crescendo of, that echo chamber. And it's going to be, oh, this class is terrible. This class is nowhere near as good as we thought. And there's still some good players. To me, I'm going down around probably one or two or three picks outside of that first round, outside of that top 12. And I'm still happy about it.
Very well, very well. And let's keep with the good draft capital for now. When we're talking in reference to the running backs this year, who, listen, when you're looking at landing spots, when you're looking at actual capital, where they went in the draft, every single one of them this year went earlier or in exactly the same range, if not better, than all of the guys that you probably were excited about last year. So we see Najee Harris landing in Pittsburgh, which people have been mocking since the beginning of time, it feels like, at 24 overall. ETN, let's go, lands in Jacksonville at 25 overall, the very next pick. Then Javonte Williams. Again, we talk about a trade up. We talk about a team targeting their guy. Right after we saw Elijah Moore go off the board to the Jets, we see Javonte Williams go to the Denver Broncos. Let's talk through these running backs. Any highlights right now that you're feeling in reference to this group? And again, everybody got great capital, which was nice to see, which very much created a gulf between them and the rest of this class, which is also how a lot of the community felt about it. But certainly I know we did as well, with those three guys being essentially in a stratosphere of their own. But let's talk through these running backs, and where do you stand now after the draft?
Yeah, I think honestly, in terms of landing spot, not just capital, because obviously they were picked highly, but landing spots, all three of these top backs absolutely hit it. It won the lottery. You've got Williams with the potential to be a 3-down back in Denver. Like, I did not expect that. You have Harris, obviously, he's going to walk into a ton of volume in Pittsburgh. And even if it's behind that terrible offensive line, you've still got big, what do I call him? Big Ben, or is he, has been, whatever you want to call him.
Been. Like, that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have the arm that he used to. So checking down, I mean, check out James Conner the last couple of years when he was healthy, the number of targets that he saw. So I think Harris, even though it's not going to be a great spot running the ball, it's going to be some tough sledding for him behind that line. That's going to be a nice one. And ETN, man, yeah. When it first happened, when ETN went to the Jags, I had that moment of like, what are you doing? Like, Urban, no, like, what is going on? What are we doing? And then I stopped and I reread my write-up of ETN, and I went back and re-listened to you and I talk about ETN, And I realized that that role in Jacksonville is the exact role that he's going to succeed in if he's going to have success. He's not going to have to carry a full workload. He's not going to have to run through tough, in the inside between the tackles, because they've got James Robinson who can spell him and do that and get that nitty gritty. And they should be able to get him into space where he's dangerous. And the big end capital, if that wasn't enough, Trevor Lawrence is there. That's the guy who helped unlock him as a pass catcher in college. I mean, that's where he got that facet of his game. And so at worst, I think he's a pass catcher, which is what Urban Meyer told us. Urban Meyer said, yeah, we drafted him in the first. He's a third down back. So at worst, that's what he is. But at best, he's going to grow into that like Kamara-like role. I could really see this being that Ingram Kamara, that early Ingram Kamara 1-2 punch, where you've got the little bowling ball back in James Robinson and the space back with that elite speed and the ability to house one with Etienne. And so I really think that this ends up being a great outcome for him.
I know prior to the draft, your film grades had a coin flip between Najee Harris and Javonte Williams. And depending upon the day for you, could have been either guy that you'd have been had at the mountaintop. Are there any scenarios at this point that you look at yourself in rookie drafts, seeing all three of those guys on the board? Is there any scenario where you look at Javonte as being the guy that you take above the other two?
I'd say I think I'm at a point where if all three of them are on the board, I'm probably trying to trade back 2 picks, because
Gotcha.
I love I really like all three of them. If you put my feet to the fire, I think Travis Etienne has the overall best upside in terms of, and everyone says upside, but I'm actually going to give you a definition. When I say upside, when I'm talking about a running back, I'm looking for a guy who ends up with, between 175 and 225 carries and over 50 receptions. And I think that you could see Travis Etienne receptions, and I think that you could see Travis That was fun.
It was so weird. It was flowing. You were in your bag and going, and then ETN.
Yeah. It was great. And everything just froze on my screen too. And so I can see me going, I was like, wow, that's pretty nice. But yeah, my computer was like, yeah, I restarted because of an issue. And I was like, okay. So
it's like I'm getting too much activity now.
That must have been it.
So you were in the middle of that.
Yeah, ETN. So yeah, I can rack that, and I really can see ETN being that type of player who could end up in the top 5 running backs. Again, that's an outside shot. That's pie in the sky. That's upside. But if you're looking at these 3 backs, the one back out of the 3 who I think has a chance to be that guy who ends up with over 1,000 yards and over 50 catches and could potentially be well over 50 catches. You saw a couple years ago where all of a sudden Leonard Fournette had 70 receptions with 100 targets. That's not out of the realm of possibility. It's on the outside shot, but 50 is doable. And that would put him up into that upper echelon of running backs. And I don't see another back in this class that's quite there. I think that you're going to see probably, I think that the top end of Harris is probably running back 7, 6, 7, 8, somewhere in there. And the running back of the top end of Williams is probably the same. It's probably 10 to 8 or 7 or 8. I mean, I think they're kind of right in there with their pass catching ability, but the total package, the ability, and especially the pass catching, it's ETN for me.
Yeah, and just so people don't think that we're sliding Najee Harris right now, because they're like, oh, you talked about Williams and you talked about ETN. What about Najee? Just so you know, obviously we still hold Najee in incredibly high esteem. And I think I can speak for Zach when I say this: the volume that Najee is going to get is likely going to dwarf both Javonte Williams and Travis Etienne this season. So it's going to be really difficult this year for you to really mess up the picks here with these top 3 running backs. I think that they all show very clear paths to what success looks like within the next couple of years. Obviously, the immediate volume going to Najee right now, the specialized role that leads to a lot of fantasy goodness going to ETN right now, and the path to take over a backfield, if not by snatching it by season's end by the beginning of next year with Javonte Williams. So I think in any of these cases, it's really nice to be able to see clear paths for how they win now and how they win next season, when you're really excited about them being possibly someone who's leading your fantasy backfields. Another place that we need to go, Zach, that's near and dear to your heart, I know. We've got to go to Atlanta. We've got to be able to at least talk a little bit about Kyle Pitts before I hit you with some rapid fire questions here, as we get ready to run it down as we go later. But Kyle Pitts goes number 4 overall to Atlanta. After the 3 quarterbacks at the top, we see Kyle Pitts landing in a situation with obviously the incredibly seasoned and just all-pro caliber quarterback in Matt Ryan. We see all-world wide receiver Julio Jones is still there. And obviously Calvin Ridley. Listen, if you're going to make a Z receiver in a lab, I think that Calvin Ridley is you're taking some piece of Calvin Ridley to make that Z to complement everything that your X maybe isn't. But we've got dynamism all over the place in Atlanta. We've got Mike Davis, RB1. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, relax. but talk to me about Kyle Pitts and how he's relating to not just this offense, but how he's looking in the greater landscape of fantasy and dynasty amongst tight ends.
I hate this. I hate this because I'm going to end up with a tight end in the first round, regardless of whether it's one quarterback or super flex, and in the first half of the first round, and I hate it. And I think that it's entirely possible that Kyle Pitts is both incredibly overpriced and a value at the same time. And what I mean by that, I know that that's a little cognitive dissonance. It's tough to hold that in your mind at the same time. But what I mean is, even though in a one quarterback tight end premium, there you go, John Bosch, tight end premium, because I know you love that. It would not, like, Kyle Pitts going off the board at 101 is not out of the realm of possibility, even though that's wild, even though that's stupid, even though the chance of tight end hitting is just ridiculous. If you look, you pull back and look at startup drafts, because rookie drafts right now, that's just this little microcosm of fantasy football. This is not the real thing yet. If you pull it back and look at startup drafts, Kyle Pitts is already going as a top 3 tight end already. Sometimes top 2, sometimes tight end 1. Like, I know John Bosch was in a chat with me the other day, and he was talking about trying to trade Travis Kelce straight up to get Kyle Pitts, and the guy's like, I don't really. And if that's the case, even if it's an overpay to go get him in your rookie drafts, it's not an overpay, because if he's going to be a top 2 or 3 round startup pick, that rookie pick is nothing compared to being a top 2 or 3 startup pick. So even if you don't ever play Kyle Pitts, even if you don't ever have him on your starting lineup, just the value that Kyle Pitts has attained because of this, all of the voices that are saying Kyle Pitts is a transcendent talent and Kyle Pitts is the greatest player we've ever seen. He's good. He's the best tight end I've graded. Like, bar none, full stop, period. He is the best tight end I've graded. I had him graded a full 4 or 5 points out of 100, higher than any other tight end I've graded. And I've got a decent track record with tight end, although cap tip to Kyle with his cheat sheet, a lot of that is because I look at the metric side of things. Pitts has got both, but tight end is a really tough position to attain those heights. And the players that we've seen attain those heights, there have been like 3, maybe 4 in my lifetime that have been the tight end 1, without any challengers. I mean, you have Kelce now. Look, Kittle never made it. Kittle didn't get there. I know people wanted Kittle to get there. He didn't get there. Kelce is the undisputed tight end 1 in terms of production. Before Kelce, it was Gronk. Before Gronk, it was Jimmy Graham. Like, that's been kind of the mantle passed. And then before Jimmy Graham, obviously, you had a couple. You had Antonio Gates, but he was more longevity, and you had Tony Gonzalez, who was just all world. So there haven't been very many guys reach that pinnacle of the mountain where they're difference makers at tight ends. Whether or not Kyle Pitts gets there, it ends up being irrelevant, because the fantasy community has already said we value him there. So taking him early in your rookie drafts is a winning proposition in terms of value, which you have to look at. I mean, like, points are great, but you also have to look at the value of taking Pitts early and being able to use him as a trade chip, if nothing else.
And I love what you said in reference to his overall value, and what we're looking at when you take him. He's already very close to being this value that people are going to be looking at taking in the first round of startups. And if that becomes the case out the gate, even if he doesn't crush in year 1, you've already drafted everything that you probably hoped for when you got him in the first round of your rookie draft. So that's Uh, it's almost like Kyle Pitts and the overpay fallacy. I think that's a like that's something to be explored and chewed on by folks when we're looking at what it looks like in that first round, whether it's premium or not, with your tight end scoring. All right, Zach. I've got several things I want to be able to talk with you about, and we'll do this in quick hit fashion. So I'm just going to either ask you a question or give you a list of names. Give me just a quick sentence on where you land, either with the grouping or where you land with that said player. All right. Coming over, I want to take a quick look at the third round wide receivers. Last year, that would have brought us players similar to like Brian Edwards. Lynn Bowden goes running back, comes back to wide receiver, gets traded, all sorts of craziness. I believe that was the area that we were looking at last year. This year, we get 5 players. Josh Palmer to the Chargers, De'Ami Brown to Washington, Amari Rodgers to Green Bay, Nico Collins to Houston, and Anthony Schwartz to Cleveland. I think I have an idea of the guy that you take in this range, but I'm curious, if you can only have one, situation and everything else wrapped into it, who's your guy in this area?
If I can only have one, it's De'Ami Brown. It is. He was my wide receiver 6 pre-draft. You got third round capital. He went to Washington, where you've got at least 1 year with Ryan Fitzpatrick, which is a lot of fun. Fitzy will throw it up, and you're opposite. That dynamic wide receiver. And so that's the guy. The other player that I'm interested in, I know I'm cheating. It's kind of like one word answers where I'm gonna say Amari Rodgers, who I didn't love pre-draft. If Aaron Rodgers is not in Green Bay, becomes a little bit more interesting to me, which sounds weird, but But I think you may end up seeing a little more volume, a little less efficiency, and a little bit more of a spread around with that offense, and so Amari Rodgers all of a sudden becomes a piece that I wouldn't mind grabbing. I mean, I think you're probably looking at in super flex. I think you're probably looking at late second, something like that, maybe early third, and that's not a bad dart throw.
Michael Carter goes to the New York Jets, the top of the 4th round. Kenny Gainwell goes in the 5th round to Philadelphia. Which player are you more likely to throw a dart at in rookie drafts?
It's probably Michael Carter. Even though I love Gainwell, I love Gainwell's pass catching ability, but you've already got Miles Sanders there. You've already got a quarterback who is pretty mobile, and so give me the Michael Carter. Give me the pass catching upside in the backfield that doesn't necessarily have much clarity. And if he can snake his way into being the pass catching back there with a little upside if there's an injury, or if he ends up becoming uber efficient or just doing Michael Carter things, because he was a really nice back at North Carolina. I think it's Michael Carter, but there's not as much of a gap there as a lot of people are making it seem.
Very good. Let's move on real quick to the day 3 wide receivers. Tons of interesting names go in day 3, whether it be your Amon-Ra St. Brown to Detroit, Jalen Darden to Tampa Bay, Tylan Wallace to Baltimore. A couple of guys that I'm big on. I don't even really want to say this out loud, but I'm going to. Amir Smith-Marset going to Minnesota out of Iowa. Cornell Powell lands in Kansas City. Those are a couple of my late round guys that I'm excited about. We've got Frank Darby to Atlanta, Shaw Smith to Carolina, Seth Williams to Denver. Is there anyone in day 3? And again, this is late in our drafts. Any of these guys tickle your fancy as guys that, you know what? It's early in the 4th round. I want to actually make a play to get one of these guys on my team.
I mean, you're talking real long shots once you get fourth, fifth round.
Yeah.
But like Amon-Ra St. Brown, because Detroit's wide receiving core has been just kind of blown apart, is an interesting one. Although I think you're going to see a lot of the targets there go to Hawkinson. But that's an interesting one. A name you didn't mention that I'm not sure yet if I'm into, but there's a little bit of an open receiving room there is Des Fitzpatrick in Tennessee.
Hey.
Yeah. And again, these are absolute flyers, but if I'm in that range, I'm taking a dart at Chuba Hubbard as a running back in Carolina as the backup to CMC. Like I'm not messing with too many receivers there. I'll take a step back, and I was really disappointed Jalen Darden ended up in Tampa. That seems to be where like all of my favorite later round receivers go to die. They just kind of wither on the vine on that depth chart because obviously Mike Evans and Godwin are just so good. There's not much else you can squeeze out of that stone.
The more disappointing drop in the draft for you, the more disappointing drop in the draft for you, Kylan Hill going to Green Bay in the 7th, Jermar Jefferson going to Detroit also in the 7th, or I almost don't even want to say it, but Brevin Jordan in the 5th to Houston. Most disappointing drop for you.
The most disappointing, I think, was Jermar Jefferson, because I really saw him as a player who was going to end up getting, probably third round capital, maybe for, maybe that beginning of day 3 and had a chance to take over a backfield. Now it's a real uphill climb. The Brevin Jordan thing, when we talked, the testing numbers had just started to come out, and I went back and looked at everything he did, and it's not really a surprise to me that he fell. When you look at how important athleticism is when the NFL is scouting tight ends, and then just the complete dearth of athleticism that he showed, it was disappointing, but it didn't come as a huge surprise, and it was actually really nice to see Hunter Long go in the 3rd. I think that could be the guy that ends up being the steal. I got him so many places right now because nobody is respecting him, and he went to Miami. Gesicki's on his last year of his contract. Is another athletic tight end who can come in and slide in. You've got a young quarterback. You've got to find ways to get make him comfortable and get the ball out quick. Boom, athletic tight end, Hunter Long, top 15% RAS score in the last 25 years. So that's my pivot from Brevin Jordan and the disappointment. I'm like, we can make lemonade out of this.
Last question here. If you would order the top quarterbacks after Trevor Lawrence. If you're looking at your drafts, how are you ordering these guys now after the draft? And is it any different than how you had it going into the draft?
It is. I go Lawrence and then Fields, which I had, and then Trey Lance, who moved up. And I actually have kind of a gap before you get to Zach Wilson. I want Jamar Chase. I want Kyle Pitts, and I want Devontae Smith before I get to Zach Wilson, just because my confidence level in the Jets and my confidence level in Zach Wilson's ability to get his receivers in places where they can succeed is not quite at a point where I'm going to give up taking a top tier wide receiver or the top tight end in the NFL. Apparently, I mean the best tight end ever. We've enshrined him. It's been nice. You're right up there next to Tony Gonzalez with that bust in the Hall of Fame. So.
Somebody get this man a Cristiano Ronaldo bust, quick, fast, and in a hurry. Daniel Jones isn't going to need it anytime soon, so let's get it to him. Zac, it's been a pleasure, man. Happy to be back into this with you again. That does it for our post rookie musings. I'm excited for the next time that we're able to get together. We'll see how our leagues are going. We'll see how our drafts are going. We'll see if some of the things that we've talked through have also played themselves out in our leagues. And there's still one league where we still have to go 1-2. I've been tempted to trade out of the pick, but I don't think that I'm going to. We still got 1-2. And I'm even tempted just to switch it up for the sake of switching it up to see who might go at number 2. We'll see how it goes. Shout out to all of our friends over in the Olympians. But man, what a pleasure and privilege to be with you again, man. Thank you so much. This is always fun.
Yeah. Oh, it's always a blast, man. It's my favorite part of the week when we get to come in and chop it up. And I'm gonna head us out on something that we're probably gonna talk about this. You're gonna be sick of it by the time July comes around, but don't get sick of it. Get involved. It's the Scott Fish Bowl. You're gonna see hashtag SFB11 come up all over the place on your timeline. Scott is doing invites in waves, and so if you haven't got yours yet, it could be coming. If you haven't signed up though, it's not coming. So go to scottfishbowl.com, go sign up. You can still sign up and get involved, because this is the best part of our entire fantasy football community, like the whole community, from Matthew Berry on down to a couple of dummies and everybody in between. We get together and play fantasy football, which is great, but raise money for a ton of charities, which is even better. There are going to be t-shirts, there are going to be charity leagues, spin-offs, there are going to be Bosch's Eliminators. Just get involved. Even if you're on the periphery, even if you don't have an invite, you're in. Get involved. There's so many places to come and be part of this. There are spin-off leagues. There are. I play in the FF Down Under Bowl, which is a Scott Fish spinoff that does charities in Australia. Scott is actually doing like a mirror league that you can get into this year. I mean, there's just so many ways you could come in and give and be part of the community, and just it's so awesome. It's my favorite time. So when you see hashtag SFB11, don't mute it. Don't scroll past it. Comment, retweet, enjoy, become part of the community, be more part of the community, because this is a time of year where you're going to have access to some of these analysts that are big names. You're going to have access potentially to Matt Berry. You're going to have access to Matt Harmon. You're going to have access to all of these really big Scott Barrett, and there's just tons of Evan Silva plays. Like, it's awesome. And so get involved, enjoy it. Hashtag SFB11, and like I said, sign up and just be a part, because it's the best thing we do as a community. And Scott Fish, I mean, he's the driving force behind all of it, and it's awesome.
Really, really great stuff, and that's truly hard to beat. Hashtag SFB11 everywhere you can. This has been a Dummies Funhouse Podcast Network production. Thank you to all the folks over at DFPN, the only at work in town. I'm on Twitter at JMic. He's on Twitter at TacitAssassin13. And this has been the Dynasty Dummies.
Peace. That was a weak piece, man.